What's up, guys? My name's Chris.
And I'm Jake.
And we're coming back with another southbound breakdown. This time, it's a 2020 Rocket 3 from Triumph Motorcycles. So Jake had an opportunity to spend the weekend with this bike. I'm going to pass it off to him. We'll hear what he has to say.
Had this bike all weekend with dry weather. I put a little over 200 miles on this bike in all types of environments, in the city, out in the country, twisty roads, in traffic, the highway. This thing is absolutely amazing. I felt like I was on vacation all weekend long. It broke my heart to give this bike back yesterday. And it would be easy to make the engine and the amazing power of this bike the focal point of this review. This has the largest production engine ever put in a motorcycle, 2500 cc inline 3-cylinder. It makes endless amounts of power. It might as well be powered by a mini nuclear reactor. But what impressed me most about this bike is the other things. I thought this thing would be an uncontrollable beast. I had myself prepared for this monstrous bike that felt hard to control. This thing is so composed and so refined. It stops, it turns, and it feels as good as it goes. It's extremely mellow and docile when you're on the highway or riding around town. But when you flex your right wrist, this thing shows you it's King Kong. I spent 13 years in the car business. I've gotten to drive a lot of really insane cars. Porsche 911 turbos, Nissan GTR, Viper, Tesla Model S's. And I would tell you right now, this is the most exciting machine that I've ever interacted with. If somebody said to me right now, you can have the fastest car you've ever driven for a weekend or another weekend with the Rocket 3, I say give me the Rocket 3 back.
That's amazing.
The attention this thing gets at stoplights and at the gas station, it's incredible. And the way it builds power, I would say if you've ever been in an AMG Mercedes with a turbo V12 engine, that's the way this thing feels. It's so unstressed. It never feels like it's breaking a sweat. But when you're doing 60 and you just roll on the throttle, 90 happens immediately. I had a smile the entire time I rode this thing. This bike is so cool. I feel like the styling, they hit it out of the park. It's very modern, hot rod looking.
It's a muscle bike.
It's a muscle bike, but this thing goes through corners way better than a bike this heavy has any business going through corners. It's a 650-pound bike. That's heavy, but it flicks side to side like a sport touring bike. I ride a sport touring bike. My everyday bike is a Yamaha FJ09, and it's probably 200 pounds lighter than this. And I just was so impressed with the way this thing flicks side to side and the way it lays over on the tires. These tires are extremely wide, and I think one of the reasons it handles so well is because of how wide the front tire is in relation to the back tire. Choppers tend to have a really wide rear tire, but a really skinny front tire, and that's not a good handling dynamic.
Right.
Then these ginormous Brembo brakes. They scrub off speed, amazing.
And that's a Stylema monoblock caliper, which you most commonly find on like a super sport bike, like leader
those
bikes.
Are serious brakes. They bring this thing to a stop in a hurry.
And ABS, obviously.
You've got all kinds of electronics on this. So electronic traction control, electronic ABS, you've got rider modes. So I played around with the different modes. There's a big difference in the regular road mode versus sport mode. When you put it in sport mode, the engine sounds more growly and throttle response is immediate. When you have it in road mode, it's a lot more chill. It's smoother when it's in road mode. But
so it's just different maps for different conditions.
Correct. I don't think it changes the actual power output. It's just the way the throttle responds.
Yeah.
This amazing rear tire here. I mean, that's a 240. I mean, that's a car rear tire. Massive amounts of grip from it. Shaft drive. This contributes to how smooth this thing feels. Shaft drive. You know, when you ride a bike with a chain, sometimes you'll feel chain lash, where you can actually, you know, kind of hear the chain. This is so smooth, so refined. I loved every minute of this bike.
So let's go back to the power output. Obviously, we're talking about a 2500 cc triple, but is it pretty linear?
Yeah, so it's 165 horsepower, 163 pound-feet of torque. And I was just, I had myself prepared for something that was going to try to kill me.
Right.
And it is absolutely predictable. It's smooth the way it's delivered. It's not uncontrollable at all. You know, I'm not any kind of a professional rider. I'm a pretty intermediate skilled rider. I never felt like I was on a bike that was outside of my skills. I felt immediately comfortable on this bike, and yeah, I'm absolutely blown away.
So for somebody that maybe, like, you don't have to be an expert rider just because it's a big engine, you know?
No, I wouldn't make this a first bike. This is definitely not a bike for a beginner.
Right.
But I feel like if you're a responsible adult with some at least intermediate level riding skill, this is a bike you could easily get on and feel comfortable riding.
That's amazing. So talk about some of the traction control and ABS features and how under the right conditions and with, you know, obvious responsible handling, you can...
I never turned the traction control off, and I see no reason to do that. I never felt traction break loose or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
This tire, again, offers tremendous grip, and the way it puts power down so smooth. It never came on abrupt or, I never felt like power came on that I couldn't handle or deal with. So,
like just
or that
like
the bike
it's
couldn't deal with.
Surprised you?
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. I did also have an opportunity, not as much as you did, but to ride this around a little bit, and I was very pleased with how the power was delivered. It was a totally different experience than what I had expected. I haven't had a chance to ride in some of those supercars, but in layman's terms, the bike is so well composed and the power delivery is so smooth and linear that you really don't have to fight to control the throttle. It's very smooth. It's not herky-jerky. Like Jake said, it's not going to just come flying out from underneath you, but as you roll on the throttle, there's definitely feels like there's no end to the power that is available if you want it.
And what I would say is, I think this is a bike that appeals to me, and I'm not really into cruisers. Cruisers are not my style of riding. Like sport touring and off-road adventure riding is kind of my niche. But if I decided to be a cruiser guy, I would go right to the Rocket 3. I feel like this is the bike every other cruiser wishes it was.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And then, like, the fit and finish. So all of the surfaces, the brushed aluminum, like this aluminum tank strap here, the metallic in the paint, the gas cap, brushed aluminum, these bar end mirrors. Take a look at the finish on the engine. These exhaust headers with the brushed aluminum. I feel like this whole thing is kind of a work of art.
I would agree. I think that Triumph has done an exceptional job in focusing on the build quality, the quality of materials that they use.
If I were comparing this to something that's not a motorcycle, like this is top shelf bourbon. It's a fine Swiss watch. It's a well-tailored suit. It's a choice cut of steak.
I like it. Now I'm hungry. So what about like maintenance intervals? Do you know much about?
So because the engine is so unstressed, you know, you have a 600-mile break-in service, which is common for all bikes. But you have 10,000-mile service intervals with this. That's insane. I mean, the average rider doesn't put 10,000 miles a year on their bike. So, you know, or if you are riding quite a bit, let's say you put 10,000 miles a year. I mean, one service a year. Now, the most common maintenance you're probably going to do on this bike is this rear tire.
Yeah.
That's a spendy hunk of rubber, and I'm guessing it's probably 3,000 to 5,000 miles when you replace it. But you know, shaft drive, so you're not lubing the chain, you're not replacing chains. Chains do stretch over time. I think that, you know, once you get past the price of buying the bike, the cost of ownership is going to be as low as you could expect for a machine like this. And the price, you know, it's not an inexpensive bike. It's $20,000, but the average new Harley costs more than that. And I got to say, this is more bike than any of those.
To say it softly. Going back to the tires, the tires are a Avon Cobra that was designed actually specifically for this motorcycle. So you won't find these tires on any other motorcycle from the OEM. It was designed with a compound in mind that is suited for this bike and the power that it puts down and the style of riding that it is intended for. So
the grip of the tires was incredible. It felt extremely planted and secure everywhere I went with it. You know, every turn I took, I felt like I was on top of something solid that wasn't going to come out from under me. It just felt really planted, and it gave me a lot of confidence.
So the weight of the bike, let's talk about that in relationship to the seat height and maybe how this bike doesn't ride as heavy as it actually is.
Okay, so for one, the athletic or the riding position is, I feel, perfect. I am not into forward foot controls, although that is an option for this bike. If you get the Rocket GT, the handlebar is a little more pulled back, and you have a front foot control. But I like the R riding position. I feel like your body position is, you're in a semi-sporty riding position. So literally just a little push on the handlebar either way, it leans you really nice into the turn, and those big tires keep you nice and planted. I felt that like this bike wanted to be leaned over, and generally bikes with a tire this wide, they want to stand straight up. They don't want to be leaned over. So that's just one of the areas where I was super impressed with this bike. A sweeping corner is where this thing absolutely wants to be.
Very cool. So it rides much lighter than it actually is on the scale.
Yeah, again, I didn't think I was on a 650-pound bike at all. I felt like I was on a sport touring bike.
And how tall are you, just so people can kind of get an idea?
I'm a smidge under 6 foot,
just
5'11" and a half.
So go ahead and put your foot on the ground then.
Flat footing this is easy.
Flat foot with bend.
I can have my hands off the bars, and I don't feel like it's ever going to fall. Nice and balanced.
That's great information for folks. What about, let's go back to the riding position and thinking about longer days in the saddle. Is this something you think that you could do, full tour around Rainier and be mostly comfortable on it?
I could. Everybody's different.
Sure.
I like to put a long day in on the bike. I probably would do the fly screen that comes on the GT. All the options that you get on the GT are just an interchangeable piece that you can put on this. So I probably would get the little windscreen just to cut the wind, but I would keep the riding position the way it is. I also would probably opt for the little sissy bar that you get with the GT, or the GT, because I do occasionally like to have a passenger, and with this much power, I would never want them to not be on the back of it.
That would be bad. Well, this is all great information for folks, and I'm glad you had an opportunity to take it out. Is there anything in closing that you'd like to say about the Rocket or the Triumph brand in general?
Yeah, I mean, if I sound like a Triumph fanboy, I am. Triumph has absolutely won me over, and it's not because I work here. I always thought they were cool looking bikes, and I knew that they were good. But now that I've gotten to experience them, I've now spent a weekend with a Triumph Scrambler, a Street Triple R, and this Rocket 3. These bikes are amazing. My next bike is unquestionably going to be a Triumph. They're amazing. Super cool.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for your time, my friend. Where can people find us? How do they get a hold of one of these?
Southbound Motorsport, 2724 96th Street South in Lakewood, Washington. You can see us right by the freeway. Come on in. It's a pretty chillax environment. We've got a lot of cool inventory and a fun atmosphere here. So come check us out.
Right on.
We do have Triumph models available for you to demo. You actually can take this bike out and experience it for yourself.
So we got demo Rockets. What else do we have in the demo
We have
line?
a Street Triple R, we have a Scrambler, and we have a Speed Twin. Very cool Bonneville model, Speed Twin.
Excellent. Well, come on down and see us, folks. Give us a call, 253-582-2288. Find us on the web, www.southboundhonda.com. My name's Chris.
Jake.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time for another Southbound Breakdown. Peace.